So, first and foremost, I want to start by thanking you for agreeing to sit down with me today, talk to me about something very important, something that we don't always talk about. And I think that today is a good day to talk about Vietnam.
Okay.
It's been 50 years.
Yes, over 50 now. Yeah.
It's 1975. We're here in Wilmington, Delaware, with TCDavis, retired Vietnam veteran, retired Presbyterian pastor. And the first question that I have for you today, Reverend Davis, Lieutenant Davis.
Yeah, Lieutenant. In the Navy, that's different than the Army.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Retired Navy veteran. Did you know that Barry Black was the Senate chaplain now? And he's actually, Barry Black is the Senate chaplain, the head of all the religious work that happens with our senators down in D.C.
Uh-huh.
He's also a retired Navy man.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Barry Black. You know him?
Nope.
That was the first question that I had.
I wouldn't mind meeting him. I try to stay in touch with chaplains.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
In your book, you talk about one whose book you read. Him and his wife wrote a book, and you read it. And you commented on that book.
Remind me, it's been a while since I published that book.
Let's start with the title of the book.
Okay.
Double Exposure,
Yeah.
not double vision.
No,
You
double.
know, I'm a retired boxer. I know what it's like to see two people.
Yeah.
But double vision or double exposure.
No, double exposure is
way different.
Yeah, double exposure is a photographic term.
Yes, sir.
When you record the same frame of a film strip twice. And if it's done deliberately, it's often an in-camera artistic opportunity. I like to make double exposures with film. But it has a double meaning. The title has a double meaning. Namely, double exposure to the memories from my year in Vietnam, 1970. My wife and I returned as tourists with a intercollegiate group of people in 2012, and we toured down along the Mekong River down through Laos and Cambodia, and then took a left-hand turn down a tributary in the Delta, and we did not get as close. We did not get very close to my place of residence in 1970, but maybe about 50, as the military would say, maybe 50 clicks away, 50 kilometers away. Yeah.
So, Peter and Catherine Marshall.
Oh, yes, okay, yeah. I did not know either one of them, but I read several of Catherine's books, and one of them was very catalytic in a spiritual experience that I had in April of 1970, which led to my enrolling in seminary and eventually becoming a pastor. Yeah.
That had to do with your mother's passing, right?
Yeah, my mom died before I got my orders to Vietnam. She died in 68, December of 68, of cancer. And she was very courageous. She had stomach cancer. And she was very courageous, and her courage facing death was important to me as I faced possible death as a combatant. Yeah.
think the courage, that's what sets the great soldier apart from somebody that won't be able to sacrifice, won't be able to do it. That courage that you got from your mom, can you speak on that? Can you give us an example of something that seeing like after she got diagnosed?
It even arose for me before I got to Vietnam, because I was assigned to a counterinsurgency role, and my orders were to live with about 200 Vietnamese sailors, and to do our best to kill the Viet Cong in our area, or at least to prevent them from moving men and supplies. And for that particular assignment, people like me, that order similar to me, went through what they call SEER training, survival, evasion, I can't remember the full. It's all about survival and evasion, and the Navy SEALs get the same training. Mm-hmm. And I got that training in November at Camp Pendleton in California, and it's cold. Mm-hmm. And
in the mountains.
Yeah, so this training involves getting slapped around by bigger guys, and we were instructed only if we were captured, we were to give only our name, rank, and serial number. Period. And I figured that if I ran up against a good interrogator, he might press me for more information. So I resolved not even to give my name, rank, and serial number, just to keep quiet, absolutely quiet. So I made that promise to myself going into this training, and I kept it. And I kept it apart.
You never ended up in that position where you had to give information.
That's a different story. See, that's a different story, because you want at least the Red Cross to receive your name, so that your kin know that you're alive. Okay. So I don't know if I would have done that if I was actually a prisoner, but I decided to do this in the training.
Right.
And I must have given the trainers a fit, because they did what they could, short of really injuring me. And I'm a small guy, so part of the training they'd stick you in wooden boxes for a period of time and give you the willies, And they gave us a taste of water torture, very brief, but they wanted us to know what that was like. So I, endured all that, but partly what enabled me to endure it was remember how my mother had faced her certain death, and she set a good example for me.
Yes, sir.
So I kept absolutely quiet, and then the last summons of we capturees in that cold November air, we standing with nothing but our skivvies on. And my name was called out along with 3 other guys. And I thought, oh, am I in for more beating? But no, it turns out that we were regarded by our trainers as the best examples of resistance.
Right.
And so we actually got to raise Stars and Stripes at the end of that exercise. Yeah.
So 32 years passed, and you and your wife, you guys decide we're going to go back to Vietnam. I'm going to show you where I was at. I'm going to show you what I did.
Well, Alice was curious about Vietnam too, but I was curious about what does the country look like now? What's the country like now that there's peace and not war? And
what did you guys see?
Well, I had hoped to connect with people about my age, but the adult population of Vietnam was reduced considerably by the war. But now it's got this new population of young people born since then. Mm-hmm. So most of the people that I met
And they call it the American War, right? They don't call it the...
Yeah, right. And of course don't have a personal existential connection to the war, except by virtue of their ancestors, maybe their uncles or fathers or something.
But they don't look at Americans as the enemy now, do they?
Well, I mean, technically yes, but socially no. I mean, the strange thing is that American veterans who go to Vietnam for visits are very warmly received. Very warmly received. That may be because some of the first visitors from this country after we reestablished diplomatic relations were veterans. They wanted to go back. And those veterans, this doesn't count me, but some of them established projects that have helped orphans, patients who require prosthetics, all kinds of good projects. So there's a good attitude about veterans.
We talk about projects, and we talk about attitudes. Your project when you came home that you started was going and getting young people to love the photography.
Yeah.
First, you discovered your love for photography, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then you started mentoring young people over at the Lions Club. And
right.
I know a little bit about you, but...
I was a young man that was a photographer and lived in Hanoi. And he was showing us some pictures, I think, on his phone one day in the bus as we were waiting for the next event. And I noticed that some of those pictures were at Flickr, which is an online community of photographers.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Oh, I'm in Flickr too." He said, "Oh, how about that?" And then I got the idea that I would like very much to continue my connection with Vietnam as it develops via photography. And of course, I knew that I probably wouldn't be able to afford another visit back to Vietnam in person, but I could do it by posting pictures. So he and I became the co-founders of a sharing group at Flickr, so that Vietnamese and American photographers could show each other what it's like to live where they live.
How many years have you guys been doing that?
Oh gosh, I'd say it's been about 30 years, I guess. Oh, not quite that long. I can't recall when I joined Flickr, but let's say it's at least over 20 years.
Do you remember when you first fell in love with photography?
I journeyed to France in 1965 as a summer exchange student and lived with some French families.
Okay.
And I was shooting with a half-frame film camera and making slides. I'm shooting the slides that I had a good eye. I was able to compose handsome pictures without thinking about it, just naturally. You know, I had a gift for that, but it was expensive, so I didn't keep up with that. And I didn't get into digital photography until I was about to retire from the pastorate. I began to shoot with a point-and-shoot digital camera. And my congregation members say, hey, you take really good pictures. You should think about doing this seriously, you know. So when I retired, they gave me a going-away present of some money, and I used that to buy what was then, it wasn't a professional camera, but it was a fine camera, the Nikon D200. And I started taking pictures with interchangeable lenses, and it wasn't long before I got really interested in bird photography and bought a great long prime lens and then had to learn the art of stalking.
Right.
because even with that long lens, I wasn't getting close enough to get really good pictures. So by experimenting, and by dressing a certain way, and by moving in a certain way, I learned how to get close to these small creatures, and I took about 50 species of portrait, hundreds of photographs. That was my first introduction to digital photography.
Out in the woods.
Huh?
Out in the woods.
In the woods, yeah.
Like you were out in the woods back when you were young.
I refer to that in my book. I say, it's when you shoot. Well, in Vietnam, when we were shot at, we didn't aim back. We simply shot in the direction of the incoming, hoping to suppress fire. And but you get the impression that good riflery is aiming carefully and squeezing the trigger gently, which is what I was doing in photography, you see, with a camera instead of a gun. Mm-hmm. And so I realized that this activity in photography was healing for me.
Healthy.
It was cathartic, yeah. And
use the word cathartic.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Catharsis is something that purges you of a misgiving or a poison. Yeah.
You feel like war was poison? Or that it can?
In a sense, yeah. I mean, yeah, some veterans live with nightmares that never go away, and I've never had combat memories in dreams. The only bad dreams I had about Vietnam was when Saigon fell in 1975. And that was because I had been living with the Vietnamese, and the South Vietnamese, and my officer counterpart, I thought of it. He was the only one whose personal information I had in my notes. So I called Camp Pendleton to see whether he might have been rescued. And I didn't receive an immediate answer, but 3 weeks after that inquiry, a corporal from Camp Pendleton gets me on the phone and says, Lieutenant, I think I might have found your guy. And his name is very common, almost like John Smith in English. Mm-hmm. It's Huy Thun. And it was he, actually. And at first he didn't recognize who I was because it had been like 5 years since, almost 5 years, since we had parted. And I learned that he had escaped from Saigon Harbor with his immediate family, his wife and children, and I think it was 2 brothers and his mother, I believe it was. And they escaped in a concrete reinforced junk. Can you imagine a boat made out of concrete? They got out of Saigon Harbor and into the what's now called the the East Sea, I think. It was then called the South China Sea. And their engine had given out, and they had no water. So,
in a concrete boat, I can't imagine that. Now, where is Wynn now? Where did he escape to?
He eventually was picked up by an American frigate in somewhere out there in the East Sea and brought eventually to Camp Pendleton. And then from there, he eventually settled in San Jose, California, which is where I reunited with him and his family. My wife's brother lived in San Jose. We were visiting him, so I connected with Lieutenant Thun, and we had a wonderful...
Because you were going to sponsor Wynn's family to come back, right?
Yeah. I thought I was in seminary at the time. And my only home, we didn't have a home. I mean, we were living in a married dormitory in the mountains. Anyway, I have David Thun on the phone, and he asks me, where am I? And I told him in Pittsburgh, and he said, snow there? And I said, oh yeah. And very quickly he said, thank you, Doug. I already have a sponsor in California. He preferred to be where the weather was warmer. I can't blame him.
I think that we all can learn something from strong ties and keeping relationships just solid.
Absolutely.
Especially when we're going through fire, we're going through the battle.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't want to have survivor's remorse.
Right. And it keeps up. I established an Interfaith Veterans Work Group in 2015 to protect veterans in Delaware from suicide.
Yes, sir.
And the suicide rate was very high. And that group has evolved into a group of mutual support between artists of different kinds. So I'm a photographer. My friend, my Navy vet friend, Leon Wilson, who's also a church friend, has taken up painting again from his youth. And
what was his name?
Leon Wilson. In a country whose people had been fighting to stay united and unoccupied by some foreign presence for hundreds of years. Really, they fought the Chinese, they fought the Japanese, they fought the Americans, they fought the French. For all that militarism, and yet I looked at billboards and I didn't see any hoorah for the warrior. The only gun I saw in country was at the memorial for Ho Chi Minh, and that gun wasn't a real gun. It was a ceremonial gun, I think probably made of wood. So that was different.
What about the spiritual economy? Did you get to pray while you were there? Did you get to visit any churches in Vietnam?
Vietnam was a place where my innate disposition to spiritual philosophy was increased. It's a place where there are pagodas set up to accommodate people of various traditions. And within the same room, large room, you can go from place to place and burn incense or offer prayers, whatever the practice might be, and you're welcome there. They're all welcome there. So, and furthermore, the Vietnamese I was living with were happy to celebrate whatever holidays were available, whether they be Christian or Buddhist or whatever. They liked the opportunity to party, you know. But anyway, I mean, I've had an inclination to want to know about and want to relate to people of other faiths as far back as I can remember. It's just grown over the years. You know.
And it started before you got your call, before you recognized that you had calling.
Yeah.
Serve.
I was raised in a Presbyterian church with pretty typical Protestant worship, with singing and organ playing and Bible reading and preaching. I was raised in liberal churches that allowed me freedom to explore beyond that circle, which I did. And I've stayed in that church. It's my spiritual family. But I call myself these days a Quakertarian. Because when I came home from the war, the Quakers' pacifism was a balm for me. Yeah, so that the balance between lots of, we Presbyterians are wordy people. You know, we love to preach and we write a lot, and counter to that, contrasted to that, is this tradition of worshipful silence. But also the Quakers do write quite a lot. They have a pamphlet tradition, so anybody that's moved by the Spirit to share their thoughts on a particular subject are welcome to publish a pamphlet and circulate it.